AEW Fight Forever is completely dead. Nobody is playing it anymore, and I'm sure you probably already know that by now. I mean, in fact, that's what this video was originally meant to be about. It was going to be about AEW Fight Forever, but it's kind of been covered to death. But if you are asking me, which nobody is, the reason why AEW Fight Forever is dead is due to lack of content, lack of new content being released, lack of clarity of when new content is being released, online play is too easy to exploit and not fun because of it, and the game as a whole is just super repetitive. But what if I told you that there has already been an AEW game, one that died for all of the same reasons as well, and one that was on your mobile phone? And no, not that, but maybe that's a video in the future as well. Me mentioning this is a mobile game may have just reminded you of a game you completely forgot existed. I am of course talking about AEW Elite General Manager, and get on your phone right now and check if you have this game, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to get it. The game has been removed from the App Store. So upon opening the game, I got my daily gift and was greeted by some patch notes, including the one at the very top, which actually announces the removal of the game from the App Store. It reads as followed: "Hey Elite GMs, we wanted to thank you for playing these last 2 years. On July 28th, we will be pulling AEW Elite General Manager from the iOS and Google Play app stores to make way for some new and exciting things from AEW games. This means you won't be able to download AEW Elite GM after July 28th, 2023. However, those with the app installed on their devices will still be able to play. We'll be keeping the servers up for an indefinite, spelt wrong, amount of time so our GMs can continue to book their dream matches. Thank you for all your support these last 2 years. We can't wait to share what's next. The AEW Elite GM team." So yeah, while no real reason was given in that statement for why the servers are going to be shut down, based on reading that, mainly the bits that say they're making way for new and exciting things for AEW games and that they can't wait to share what's next, it kind of reads like they've ceased work on the game and they're focusing all their attention and getting work done on AEW Fight Forever. And that's why they're stripping back on doing any sort of work on AEW Elite GM. But hey, anybody want to tell them to start that work on AEW Fight Forever? We are absolutely dying out here for an update. So the game is very easy to get around. I mean, you'd hope so. You'd hope it's easy to navigate. It is a mobile game after all. The first tab is for setting up all your cosmetic stuff, just things like your avatar, your finisher. You can update your weapons and gimmicks that can be used in actual play, and you can also view the long unupdated list of AEW wrestlers who can be found in the game, full of wrestlers who aren't in AEW anymore and lacking many who are still in AEW. And then the other tabs, you've got your multiplayer, your single player, and the microtransaction section, because of course we do, it's a mobile game. Anyway, let's actually play the game. Let's start off on multiplayer, doing a casual match, which is the main mode of play within this game. I would like to shout out this guy that I matched against, because it was obviously very, very difficult to find a match, and I can't even begin to tell you how long it took me to get into a game. It took me over a day. Obviously, no one really plays this game that much anymore, so it was really hard to match against a random. As well as that, I couldn't get anyone I know to help me out because they don't have the game on their phone, and the game's not on the App Store anymore, so they couldn't even download it. But luckily, I matched against one of you guys, so shout outs, and we finally got ourselves a game. Anyway, as you can see from what's going on, I'm signing wrestlers, I'm booking matches, and I'm running my shows. It's super easy to do, and on the other end, your opponent is doing the exact same thing. You have 3 things to monitor, which are your money, your viewership, and your morale, and these are the variables that determine whether or not you win the game, and they go up and down based on how your shows are booked. To be honest, to this day, I've still not figured out how it really works, but you each do 3 shows, and whoever has the highest of those values I just mentioned, best out of 3, then they win. It's simple enough, and the gameplay is simple and easy to navigate around too. However, just like AEW Fight Forever Online is really exploitable, so is AEW Elite GM's online mode. AEW Fight Forever Online has the constant ring outs and the constant rolling out of the ring, while AEW Elite GM has 6-man tags and 6-way matches being booked over and over again with the same people. By doing this method of just booking the same guys over and over again in large multi-man matches, you usually get at least the money and the viewership up, which is enough to get you the win. Unfortunately, AEW Elite GM doesn't really have a system where your own personal booking or realistic booking does well, and if all matches don't have 6 participants in them and your opponent does, chances are you aren't winning. For the most part, a lot of people play the game regularly, especially who I matched against just played it very regularly with realistic booking, but when the game first came out, aka in the game's prime, this was the big exploit that a lot of people were tryharding and doing in order to win online. But anyway, for single player you have career mode and endless mode, and let's start with career mode. I hate it. As you can see from career mode, there's loads of different stages, and a few of these seem new or newer. I hadn't seen them before. You've got starting out, sabotage, reunion, and send hook. And starting out is the first stage, and it is quite literally just the longest tutorial of all time. It isn't a career mode in any way, that first stage. It's something I remembered playing when the game first came out, and it just dragged for so long that I never ended up touching the career mode ever again. And unfortunately, my data wasn't saved, and I had to go at it again before I got bored and quit after about 10 to 15 minutes. I also really wanted to try and play the other 3 stages because it seems like you get a bit more freedom in those ones by reading the instructions based on that. But unfortunately, when I went to try it, they were locked. Guess what? You have to complete what comes before it to unlock it, and unfortunately, I'm not completing stage 1 anytime soon. You've also got booking challenges, which are pretty cool, I guess. It's just like an extra thing in the game, obviously, but there's a whole lot you can do, and it's a nice time killer in the game, I suppose. And hey, speaking of time killers, let's talk about endless mode. Endless mode in AEW Elite GM is exactly as advertised. It's just endless booking. It's what you saw in the online mode, except, well, it's endless. However, endless definitely has some differences to what your regular online play does. In endless, you have more matches per card, you can set up feuds, you can book pay-per-views and title belts, and I think at least a couple of those features, at least pay-per-views I know of, are features that came later on in the game, so it shows there was at least some content coming out in the game, I suppose. I of course went ahead and booked a very realistic and topical feud, and then booked the greatest go-home show of all time centered around that feud, but unfortunately it must have not connected with the fans, or there was a big fight backstage because it got me fired and I didn't even get to book a pay-per-view in the end. Anyway, as to my final thoughts on AEW Elite GM, it's not a bad game, honestly. It's just literally how I'd exactly expect a mobile booking simulator to look. It's very simple, it's very bare bones, it's a mobile game. I didn't really know what people would expect with that, and it was never going to have a long shelf life. I mean, mobile games never do. AEW Elite GM died after a week, just like every other mobile game does. But hey, regardless, they're still keeping it around. If you still have the game on your phone, you can hop on, kill some time with it. I'm sure I'll probably do that every now and then, but this isn't a game that me or anyone else was ever going to play regularly, and the fact that it shut down after 2 years kind of proves that. In comparison to Fight Forever, I mean, Fight Forever is probably a worse case because Fight Forever was this big hyped up console game, whereas Elite GM is a mobile game and in a way kind of performed exactly how you'd expect it to, whereas AEW Fight Forever has very clearly been released pretty unfinished. They really need to get on it with this Stadium Stampede mode. I know that will definitely bring some players back in, but you need to keep those players, so you need to make sure you're releasing content immediately from the gate after that. Overall, AEW Elite GM was fine, and let's just hope that AEW Fight Forever does not follow the same path of Elite GM.